does this vaccine work?
These are drugs that train our body to recognize that there is a foreign enemy afoot.
How do we know it's safe?
The speed did not compromise scientific integrity, nor did it compromise safety.
I would roll up your sleeve and go for what's available.
Does this vaccine work?
These are drugs that train our body to recognize that there is a foreign enemy afoot.
How do we know it's safe?
The speed did not compromise scientific integrity, nor did it compromise safety.
I would roll up your sleeve and go for what's available.
Hello? Hello? Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. I am Wen Eckelberg, a UW sophomore in American Ethnic Studies and English, and I've been involved with the Mellow Tone project since 2019. As you know, we changed location at the last moment from Joy Palace to here at the Rainier Arts Center to provide more space, allow people to stay masked, and to let people view this event as it is simulcast. On behalf of all of us here, we want to thank Ben Leotawa of the Rainier Arts Center for all of his help and support.
Hi, I'm Caroline Natsuhara. I'm a senior at UW, and I just joined the Mellow Tone project during this spring quarter. I'm one of the illustrators. Today we'll have a few performances, and at the end we'll show you some outtakes from the Mellow Tone when it was a film originally. So make sure you stay around for that.
Before we start, we want to encourage people to only take the number of novels that you need in your family since we only have a limited number of copies. Also, if you're an OCA Asian Pacific Advocates of Greater Seattle member, we have free t-shirts modeled by our volunteers, Stephanie Gonzalez, Emlyn Delgado, Myra Galvan, Vanessa Lee, and Edwin Ong, and you can look in the back to see them modeling that too. Just let them know before you leave, and they will try their best to get you the size that you need. If you'd like to become a member of OCAGS, we have forms and we will accept square payments. If others are interested in just purchasing the t-shirt, they are $20 each.
Traditionally, the lion wards off evil, so to celebrate the completion and debut of the comic novella and wish for happy
Hello? Okay. Can we give another round of applause for the Mach 5 Lion Dance team? As many of you know, our comic book was initially going to be a continuation of an earlier film funded by the Department of Neighborhoods called From Gumsan to Golden Spike in honor of Golden Spike Day. But after the stay-at-home order resulting from COVID-19, we had to convert the film into a comic book. Here to sing our original theme song, In a Mellow Tone, is Annabel Garcia-Andresen, a Dunlap elementary school teacher whose daughter Tiana was initially going to play one of our main roles for the film, Betty. Everyone, please welcome Annabel Garcia-Andresen.
Thank you. I know that this is a song that many people may have heard before or feel some kind of way about, so if you want to sing along, please do. I don't want to take the whole stage. In a mellow tone, feeling fancy-free, and I'm not alone. I've got company, everything's okay. The livelong day with this mellow song, I can't go wrong. In a mellow tone, that's the way to live. If you mope and groan, something's gotta give. Just go your way and laugh and play. This unknown in a mellow tone. In a mellow tone.
Can we give another round of applause for the Mach 5 Lion Dance team?
Fancy free, and I'm not alone.
As many of you know, our comic book
I've got some company. Everything's okay.
in honor of Golden Spike Day.
The livelong day with this mellow
Here
song,
to sing our original theme song,
I can't go wrong. In a mellow tone,
was initially going to play one of our main
that's the way to live. If you mope and groan, something's gotta give. Just Thank you. go your I know way this is a song that many people
and laugh and play.
there's joy unknown in a mellow tone, in a mellow tone, in a mellow tone, in a mellow tone.
All right. So to provide some background on this project, I would like to invite our supervisor, Dr. Connie So of the American Ethnic Studies Department and president of the OCA Greater Seattle. Here she is.
Thank you, everybody, for coming here, and again, for following us all the way from Joy Palace over to this space. So, and again, thank you, Caroline, for the introduction. I have really bad eyes, but anyway, guys, I want to make sure I stay on track. So, I want to give you guys a little history about this project. Once upon a time, back in 2019, before it was COVID-19 and all that stuff, right? We worked with a group of students to go ahead and produce From Gunsan to Golden Spike. And we wanted to do something to celebrate, because everybody we knew who was a big speaker on this topic was actually over in Promontory Point, as they should be. So in about 5 weeks, with the help of all the people in the community and such, we got together and we actually made something. And in fact, the Seattle Film Festival even kind of showed it as a little blurb, and we got a lot of publicity, so we felt really good, and we really felt good about the community support that we had. So many people wanted us to go ahead and continue along. And we had told the story about people coming from China, southern China, over to America through the Wong family. And many people wanted us to continue the story. And we wanted to as well, but we didn't know, what would be a good time. An opportunity came when at last, the Chinese American veterans of World War II were getting their Congressional medals. And this followed an effort from the Japanese Americans, Filipino Americans, and African Americans, a lot of folks that really deserve to be honored. So when Cathay Post asked if we would like to help in the celebration, of course we said yes. And we decided we're going to go ahead and try to make a film to celebrate all of them. And we actually wrote this script in the Asian American Studies 380 class. And a lot of people who were there, they're in this an audience right now. I never really care about whether or not you act well. I care more about sincerity. And so we had a working script, and a lot of people just kind of ad-libbed a lot of things. And we were all going. We had about 2/3 of the film done when the stay-at-home order came. So we thought we would hold it off. We'd go ahead and see what happens. But it was pretty clear by the time it got to August, nothing was changing for a while. So a decision was made. We have all this film. We, quote unquote, waste a lot of money otherwise, right? So we want to do something, and all the students' efforts and such. But we had to meet the contract for the Department of Neighborhoods. So we decided, and actually I give a lot of credit to Han Eckelberg, because he really was trying to figure out a good way. And he was a senior at the time and wanted to graduate and finish the stuff before he goes on to grad school and continues on and so forth. So a decision was made to make it into a comic novella to retain as much of the film as possible. And also, comic books are really popular for a lot of people. And we wanted to communicate this information while people are young, because we feel like when they're kind of old, it's good to know that too, but let's start young and get the younger people knowing some of this history, because we know they're not teaching history much anymore, right? So anyway, and as it happens, in converting the comic novella, and the person I want to credit to, he's not here yet, he's coming from work, is Johnny Doe. He's a liaison for the Department of Neighborhoods. We had to redo the entire budget. So we were delayed all the way until December of 2020 before we finally got an approval to go ahead and embark on this all over again. So when January 2021 came, we were all there. We're going to go ahead and work hard, but we needed to get artists. Han has done a lot of work for OCA, as a lot of you guys know, but he can't do this all by himself, and it's a project that students really did. We needed the artists, and I always believe in sincerity even more than artwork, but when the two come together, it's fantastic. And I was very fortunate. My TA, my reader for Asian American Studies 206 that quarter was Caroline Natsuhara, who was an American Ethnic Studies and art major. My other reader for my Chinese American class was Heidi Tandiono. And again, she's a biology major. I didn't know she was a closet artist as well. And she was, okay? And then in my class, I had Brooklyn Hose, who did this wonderful artwork for my 206 class. And it's just great timing, because they all got along too. Even over Zoom, we don't really know each other. And there's also Mason Dewey, who's in Salt Lake City right now, Tommy Tran. And again, those guys were not artists, but they were enthusiastic and really, really wanted to help. So, and then Wen Eckelberg, Han Eckelberg, siblings, they also were there. Together, they were able to convert the the film into a comic book. So I really want to thank them all for their effort. And it's, and the people we also want to thank, because they were the ones who provide the funding and were patient about this, is Yoon Pitry for the Department of Neighborhoods, plus our partners in OCA, Asian Pacific Advocates. I know that's thanking myself, but all the other board members, they did a lot too. Department of American Ethnic Studies and University of Washington, the Chinese American Citizens Alliance, because they gave us a lot of footage and actually always wanted to help out a lot more. We were all prepared for the film. It's just other things came up. And two other people I really want to point out are the late Dean Sudakawa. He actually invited us to go to his house and listen to his jam, because we wanted to use his music for the background. And then we also want to thank Ron Chu. Most of the film is actually done in his backyard and in his little outhouse area. And he was patient with us. We stayed there, I think, from maybe 6 in the morning or so, we got preparation, and we didn't leave until about 10 o'clock at night, and Ron sleeps, he says, at 8 or 9. So anyway, we really kept him. So I really want to thank those guys and all the other people. There's basically two in the Yellow Tone teams, the one for the film and the one for the comic book. And I was blessed, very fortunate to have really terrific people right there. And I really want to thank the artists because I don't think I actually did that much, except to say that's really nice work. That's really pretty. Or a few things here and there. So I really want to thank them for their artwork and their scholarship. And again, they kind of modified the script so they fit the comic book form and would make a lot of sense. So, again, this is actually from the film, the top part. That's Andy Chen. He was supposed to play Wing Luke, but okay, that didn't happen, And then we have the people, the illustrators, and the people in the second part. That's the graphic you have down below. And again, they even inspired me to draw a graphic of myself in the comic book. So anyway, guys, I really want to thank them, and I hope you guys will enjoy the book, as much as I enjoy working with the students. Anyway, another person I want to invite who's always been a very big supporter for all Asian American Pacific Islander efforts is somebody I've known from Cleveland High School. He was the PTSA president before I was the PTSA president. Even though he's very active in the Seattle City Council and in many other organizations, he made time. He always makes time to come and support our activities. So I want to go ahead and invite Bruce Harrel to say a few words.
Thank you, Connie. I'm just so honored to be here. I'll say to the young folks, not you old people like me, that I think most of you know I'm running for mayor, and I would be the first Asian mayor in our city's history, and that would be quite an honor. But I got to tell you, young folks, that political change has always been inspired and moved and fought for by our younger generation. As we look at what's happening to our community now, particularly to the Asian community, and I say that broadly knowing that to a lot of us that's almost offensive because we have to celebrate our rich Chinese history, our rich Japanese history, our Filipino history, Laotian, Vietnamese, we can go down the list, right? We know that we have a unique story. But we're suffering this together, these stereotypes and this violence against us. And so I openly talk about this because when I was your age of Japanese descent, despite my age, I didn't fight in World War II. I'm not that old. But my mother was interned, as the Japanese were, during World War II, as were her brothers and sisters. And so my mistrust of government, even though I'm running for mayor, still runs in my DNA. So I'm asking many of you to go to my website. It's Bruce for Seattle. And I know when you're thinking Bruce, who you're thinking of, right? Bruce who? And I say Bruce Lee because when I was an athlete, there weren't a lot of Asian athletic heroes. So when I played football, remember Bruce Lee used to go like this all the time, right? I was a linebacker, and that's all I did because all I thought was Bruce Lee. And I got to tell you, those were our heroes, but we learned how to sort of dummy down our Asian part of us. We were trying to be American, and we were taught this. But your generation are wearing it so proudly. So I'm going to ask for your help. Come start this movement with me. We're having a lot of fun. We won the primary first. We're working hard, and we're doing it for our community. And so the Department of Neighborhoods, if elected, we will be all over this with you. We will be your strongest partners. Because what you're doing is you're telling our history from us. We don't want them to tell our history. We want to tell it ourselves. So I'm honored to be here, and I will be with you all the way. Thank you very much. Where am I going?
All right. To start the book reading, I want to invite Han Eckelberg. During Han's senior as an American Ethnic Studies and art major, he worked diligently on this project. He will be continuing his work as a storyteller when he pursues his MA in Communications Leadership this fall at UW Seattle.
Testing, testing. Thanks, Caroline. So I want to go off and go ahead and say thank you to all the volunteers and students from AS 380. If you are in the audience right now, please stand up. I want everyone to give a big round of applause to our talent, to our directors, to our producers, Schwendas. Come on, Olivia, I see you. Come on, stand up. Because for real, they really worked tremendously hard. Thank you. And yes, and also I want to also introduce the In a Yellow Tone Dream Committee. As Professor So stated earlier, this committee was comprised of a lot of artists who are students at the University of Washington, and they'll be joining me on stage soon. But I'll go ahead and I'll introduce them on stage. First, Heidi Tandiono. Please give a round of applause for Heidi. And Brooklyn Hose. Trying to think who else is gonna come up here. Name was Caroline Natsuhara. Tommy's not here, but Tommy Tran. And yeah, and we'll go ahead and we'll begin the book reading. So just the order of events for today's program. If you haven't already, please go to the back and pick up your free In a Yellow Tone tote. It's an exclusive design designed by our artists here. It also has, the line art on the back as well as In a Yellow Tone on the front. Along with the tote, you can get a free comic book as provided by our sponsors. So please make sure to pick up one. And if you're OCA member, as said before, please go to the back over here and pick up a shirt as well. So after the book reading, which is going to be gone through with the In a Yellow Tone Dream, we're going to have a Q&A session with the audience. After the Q&A session, we'll then begin a special screening of what we filmed in 2019-2020 time period. All right, y'all ready? Let's go ahead and we'll begin with Act 1. So for I've never done like a book reading before. Have y'all done a book reading before? No. So bear with us as we kind of figure this out too. But to my knowledge, I'm gonna go through the entire book, just a general overview of each act. Then we're gonna have a few selected scenes selected by our artists to go ahead and give like their insight and what they learned along the way too. Stand up. We're gonna stand up when we speak. So for Act 1, if you go through your book, you can see that's like page 8, I believe. Act 1 starts with introducing Collette and Cyman. So Collette being Heidi, and Cyman being Tommy, one of our other artists. As well as introduced to those characters, we start to learn more about their research assignment. That assignment being a portrait of an Asian American old-timer during World War II. That kind of sets up the entire book from there, and it goes on through the entire comic book. What we also see is a first glimpse of the past in the 1940s. So Cyman, the main character of the book, has a letter that he starts reading and finds his old text, his great-grandfather. That's how we get introduced to Ji-tung. And if you're following with us before, Gumsan the Golden Spike, that first movie focuses on Wong Ho-ping. So Cyman, his last name is Cyman Wong, and as we follow his lineage, we're actually learning more about his family's history. And it's a fiction comic book, but we tie in real history. So through the Wong generations, we find them interacting with many Seattle pioneers.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I guess I wanted to spend most of my time talking about the artwork. And so since this is the first act, I figured it'd be good to like give a little spiel on like how this really started. So I was the first artist they recruited for this project, and we went through a lot of different drafts. Like I think there's like 2 or 3 different other styles before we finally settled on this one. And I wish I could show them to you, but I don't think we have enough time for that, or I don't think we have them on there either.
Afterwards.
Yeah. But yeah, so, and I think Han also already mentioned that we had previously filmed material. And so a big part of the artwork I was doing for this was learning how to convert like the film material we had into like, I guess, artwork. And so I think we have an example later that you guys will get to see. And as Han also mentioned, I was one of the actors when we were filming. And so it was really interesting to have to draw myself in this. And actually, like, in the middle of, like, the pandemic, I was a little scared we were gonna start filming again because I had chopped off, like, my hair, like, to my chin. And so I was a completely different character from what we had in the first film. So, yeah, that's it.
Cool. And then we'll go on to Act 2. So the general overview for Act 2 is more of a focus of the past. So we're starting in 1938. In 1938, Parkman Wong, which is the father of Zhou Louis Wong, as you'll learn more in the story, adopts Jiteng from Toisan, China. We could have done a focus of how the adoption would have worked. It would have been through Angel Island. It's a very long, strenuous process. And also it was unfair at the same time. It had a lot of paper sons. But the reason why we didn't really focus so much on the adoption is because we didn't want to take away from the main part of the story. So for the comic book, we just have Jiteng being adopted by Parkman Wong. It's also an introduction to Zhou Louis Wong throughout the other part of the comic book. Then we go on to Act 3. So for Act 3, Cyman and Collette discover Zhou Louis' journal. Zhou Louis is the great uncle of Cyman. So looking back in the past, we're going through Zhou Louis' perspective of history. We also get a little touch of Jiteng's life in Seattle as being someone who just immigrated to America. Then we also get introduced to the first person of Caroline's inserts, Danny Wu.
Okay, hello? Do I stand up? Okay, yeah, so this is like the first act that I created for this book, and when I joined, it was like, sorry, excuse me. When I joined this project initially, it was kind of in the middle of like when they were all already like illustrating the comic, and so this is the first act that I started, and I remember when I was starting, I was like, I want to make every scene like a piece of art, like I want to do like, go into it, like make everything perfect, but then, you know, reality set in, like deadlines are real, we needed to get this out on time, so this was the longest act I've spent time on, and it also is not one of my favorite either, but but you know, you live and you learn, so so yeah, I had to learn very quickly shortcuts and just ways of just efficiently being able to pump out these chapters. So yeah, that's kind of my main focus and my process for kind of how I started. But yeah.
Also in Act 3, we get to learn a song being sung that's pretty famous at the time period, the 1940s. That song Zai Lai, or in English, When Will You Return? This song is sung later on in the comic book as Ginger, who is the cabaret singer and dancer in the comic book, becomes more in touch with her Chinese side. So to help perform this song, we have Cecilia Xu. She's going to be singing Hui Jun Zai Lai. Let's please welcome Cecilia to the stage.
Hello. How are you guys? Good, nice. My name is Cecilia, and I'm gonna be singing "When Will You Return," and hope you guys enjoy. 这杯清静点小菜，人生难得几回醉，不会更何待。来来来，喝完了这杯再说吧。今宵离别后，何日君再来？听徜阳关殿，重庆白玉杯，饮清平之语，高老夫君怀。今宵离别后，何日君再来？喝完了这杯清静点儿小菜，人生难得几回醉，孤魂更何待？唉，再来一杯，干了吧！今宵离别后，何日君再来？
Let's give another big round of applause for Cece. All right, now we're going to Act 4. Act 4, personally for me, was the hardest act of the entire comic book. Reason being, that was the most filmed part of the entire series for in Yellow Tone. So it was the high school scene. This is where we get to like day in the life of Joe Louis, basically. We're building up relationships, life in the 1940s. It's really supposed to emphasize life for Central District and Chinatown kids in the neighborhood. So it builds up more context in the 1940s, which later on in the comic book we explore what happens when war reaches Seattle and impacts other people mentally, physically, and emotionally. Oh, and yeah, the longest act to edit, as said. So here's an example of what Heidi was talking about. So from the initially filmed clips, what we would do is I would plan out each frame, expecting like, oh, the thought bubble is going to go to the right here, and the text line on the bottom here. What Heidi did was, after being sent these frames, would convert these into animations. So basically, what you see in the comic book right now. Boom. So yeah, a lot of work, and that's mostly for Act 4 as well for 16, 9, 1. I mean, throughout the entire book, Heidi's just been like converting countless images into her own personal style, and I think that was one of the biggest things I was really impressed by Heidi as well, was finding ability to also showcase her creativity while staying true to what the actors and actresses' talent had to provide for the film as well. So now for Act 4, Heidi's favorite scene.
Why is that my favorite scene?
It's my favorite too.
Yeah, so I think this one was a pretty collaborative effort, honestly, like especially like just like putting together the script and then converting that into like whatever ideas and like imagery we wanted to portray in the book. And so for this one, I think we were going for like a very like K-drama, just like a very drama feel, like as you can see in like the pages that are showed up here. I think my favorite part of like drawing this whole book was actually just drawing like Joe Louis' imagination. So like in the first page that's on the, I guess you guys' left side, you can see like he's imagining like what could go wrong during this dance. And I think that's just, it's a very like classic thing that you would see in like a drama or a comic book or like a manga even. And I really enjoyed being able to portray like this sort of like fun little addition to their dance.
Now we go into Act 5. So we explored Joe Louis' life in the 1940s. Now we're going to explore Ji Tung's life. So for Ji Tung, he worked at the new Chinatown nightclub, which was ran by Danny Wu in Chinatown. And we're starting to feel more of the pressure of war building up at this time. As you read more into Act 5, you'll find out that Ji Tung decides to enlist. And one of the reasons why he decides to enlist is the sense of responsibility, this urgency, because as is also stated in the comic book, not going to give any spoilers, but he feels like he has a sense of duty to go and fight and enlist in the war.
Okay, so yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes. I mean, like, elephant in the room, the kiss is probably the most amazing part of it. Yeah, because I am a hopeless romantic type I really love my romance dramas and books, so it was really fun to be able to do this. But as you will see more in the act, like, this was one of my favorites as well because it was very easy to, like, it just kind of flowed all together very easily, and I wasn't able, like, there wasn't a lot of edits I had to do or, like, erase things and redraw it. So yeah, I personally, I love this scene a lot. And the blue tones are very therapeutic for me to draw, and I really loved it. And yeah, so, like, and what's also important for me, like, in terms of romance representation and portrayals of people of color in books, I really love this because I like have a chance to draw, like, and represent people who aren't always seen as main characters and who aren't always highlighted or well nuanced in media. So to be able to, this scene makes me laugh for many reasons. But yeah, so we have Ginger. She's a very, like, independent, strong woman. That's kind of the trope that she's under, and which I really like because you don't because often men are writing women in books, and so it's not really accurate, or or it's a little, like, weird. But to be able to draw her and, like, represent her in a certain way, I felt like I was being able to have some of my advocacy in that and show she's a nuanced character. But yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah.
And yeah, I should also mention that there's multiple main characters in the comic book. Ginger and Ji Tung being a pair, Joe Louis and Cindy also being a pair, and then Cyman and Collette, who is connecting all this history for their research assignment. So we go on to Act 6, and this actually I would say is my favorite my favorite part of the comic book. Reason being is it highlights one of my relatives, Quinn Wu, who is my great grandfather. And the story being that he was enlisted into World War II, and there was this white guy who was saying racial slurs to him. And so instead of being, as the media portrays, submissive, allowing this person to keep commenting these stereotypes, he instead beat up the guy, basically, with kung fu. So the commander saw this and said, hey, would you like to be part of this new program that I'm starting, the military police, and it advanced him as part of his own personal bodyguard. So this is why this is my favorite scene, because we get to highlight that in the comic book. Yeah. And yeah, if you go through this page, it's really fun. I like the scene, the action. Brooklyn did a nice job of highlighting the movements, as well as, like, the subtle, like, nuances, like, within character communication. So it was really cool. I really like that. We go into Acts 7 and 8. So for Acts 7 and 8, this is more context building. So it's more of, like, what's happening in the 1940s. We got the Day of Infamy as well as Executive Order 9066. So one of the things I put on for this slideshow was yellow peril, and it seemed like an umbrella to all these ongoing fighting, because it was like, oh, okay, the enemy, Asian, Japanese. If you were Asian, you were labeled as, like, a certain species that was like a cockroach that can withstand such evil means and can outsurvive any other humans in the world, humans being white people. So there was always this threat that was like an umbrella over in America. which then led to the Japanese internment. As you can know from the Japanese internment, it didn't even impact all the Japanese across the nation. It was mostly on the West Coast. But why was it only the Japanese? Because we were also fighting Germany and Italy, but we didn't have an internment for Germans or Italians. But then you can see, along with this act, it goes through letters and a lot of other historical context. You can see really the impact in the Seattle community, which leads into Act 9. Act 9, more people are thinking about enlisting into the war, and we get a focus of the Filipino American veterans, the Filipinos wanting to enlist as well. So that's what Act 9 kind of focuses. It goes to Joe Louis' friend, Felix Reyes. Felix decides to enlist. And so there's always this sense of unease. We don't know. Joe Louis hasn't heard from Ji-tung in a little bit. This separation and the thoughts of saying goodbye. How does that look like?
So yeah, Act 9 was Act 9 was definitely, I think, for me as an artist, one of the emotional ones to draw. And especially, like, I think maybe, like, not everybody realizes, but, like, when you're making artwork, there's a lot of emotional labor that goes into it. And so when you're, like, looking through this material and, like, having to, like, understand, like, I guess, the feeling of the separation that's being portrayed in the film, and then also having to, like, take that on yourself and then put that into artwork, it takes quite a toll on you, honestly. And so, like, when I was looking through the film material as I was making it into the actual, like, material you'll see in the comic book, I tried really hard to, like, preserve, like, all the hard work that the actors had put into the emotions and just, like, the overall acting that went into this. And I hope they think that I did a good job. But yeah, I think this for me was one of the hardest ones to draw.
So then we go on to Act 10 and 11. This, again, is more of a context building. We're getting more acquainted with other famous people during the 1940s, such as Hazel Lee. We had Arthur Chin initially, and even more inserts as designed by Caroline. So that's what this is all about. It's all about how do you communicate overseas, especially during this time period, building up the sense of community. And as mentioned, the insert, we get to meet Wing Luke. So this is Wing in the comic book. The person who meets Wing Luke is Ji-tung. We go on to Act 12 and 13. And again, yeah, it's the letters as a main form of communication, but we're also focusing on relationships, especially for Ginger, who is a pivotal role of not so much identifying as being Chinese. She starts to accept more of her Chinese heritage, singing the song He Rei Jun Zai Lai, and even making amends with her father. We go on to Act 14 and 15. This is really towards the resolution of the war. We're approaching 1945, and we find out a really pivotal character in the comic book, a friend of Joe Louis, has passed away. Not to give any spoilers, but that really impacted me because he was one of my favorite characters, even though he was only really there for Act 4. And we go into Act 16. So this is really the resolution of the comic book. It's the last act, and it was also the final act I think we all kind of tackled. Act 16 was pretty crazy because when we reached that point, the script didn't really have an ending, meaning that the ending was made for film, but we're making a comic book, and then we condense it to comic book form, but the ending doesn't work for a comic book form. So we had to go and piece together what the ending would look like. So these are pretty much fresh, new, original scenes that were with the script to be modified for the comic book version that you see today. Oh, yeah. So long process of being that Ji-tung finally returns in this act. And what we wanted to showcase was it's a very long process, especially for many of the overseas troops. Some people wouldn't even return back in a year. Thankfully for Ji-tung, he came back in 6 months, but for many other troops, it wasn't so fortunate. It was up to a year and a half, sometimes even 2. So then it's the joy of seeing family, of seeing Ginger, and also it's the anger. Racism is still alive, even in America.
Okay, yeah. So this scene, I really like this scene because of the colors and the lighting. It felt very sentimental, and I was trying to kind of convey that in the piece. So yeah, I was like sticking to light colors, like, oh my gosh, he's back home. His whole family's like, Ji-Tong, you're back. Like, they're all like so happy. So, and yeah, and you have like the dramatic like dress flowing in the wind, you know, classic romance scene. All right. But yeah.
I also like to mention, Ji-Tong probably came back on King Street Station. So just the fact that with Brooklyn, when she incorporated like a very nice scene, I'm just thinking like, dang, King Street Station back then, like, you know, like that's crazy. But yeah, we go on to the next act, Act 16, Scene 2.
So for Act 16, I guess just like my final thoughts on it and like how we decided to like conclude the comic, I thought it was really nice that we got to bring it back to like where this project started, which was with us at UW. And you can see like in the panels, I think it was showed before, but all of our team is drawn there. And yeah, I thought it was just really fun to be able to add that spin-off at the end.
Hello? Okay, sorry. So I think so. Hello? Okay. Sorry. So I was in charge of the inserts with another person, Mason Dewey, who couldn't be here today. But basically, they're little kind of information pages explaining certain figures and events, some military units. Basically, how we split up the work, Mason and I, is she did the research and found like photo references for me to use, and then wrote the inserts, and I just focused on the illustration. It was a really collaborative work. We took care trying to choose which photos we used as references. One example of that was what we used for Executive Order 9066. For that, we went and looked through like Densho, the Japanese American digital archive, and looked for photos that were specifically relating to the Seattle area. So choosing photos that referenced the Puyallup Center, Camp Harmony, and then also the movement of those incarcerated there to Minidoka, where many from the greater Seattle area were interned. And also, it was just really fun and cool to learn about all of this even more through this process. Mason and I talked about how some of these figures we didn't know or we know of but didn't know the details. So it was an educational process for us as well, getting to meet these people through this way and memorialize them in some sort of way. But yeah.
Wen, do you want to say anything for the act covers and letters? I could speak for you too. Yeah, so for the act covers and letters is really handled by Tommy Tran, who's not here right now, but he will be here later today. Tommy really took charge of what would be written in some forms of the letters, as well as the images that you see in the letters. And also to incorporate some of the film scenes that we had before, Wen also edited, drawn, and placed her artwork on top of the images. So that's what you see in the letters as well. Oh yeah, and the act covers. All the act covers are designed by Tommy Tran as well. So it's all little small symbolisms that reference each act in important detail. For example, Act 2, that's Ji-Tong's suitcase when he came to America. With that being said, we are now ready for the Q&A. But before we get into the Q&A, I want to just go ahead and really extend a huge appreciation for the artists in the IYT Dream Committee. Caroline, Brooklyn, and Heidi, as well as Tommy, Mason. Y'all really just made this book possible, and without them, we wouldn't have this project here today. So can we please give them a big round of applause? And yeah, so that being said, let's go ahead and we can start the Q&A. I guess, yeah, let's have Wen. You can go ahead and direct questions from the audience or from what you have there. But yeah, please feel free to extend your hands out and we can answer some questions. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions to ask first? Okay, I'll just go ahead and get it started then. Oh, where?
I had a question in particular for the illustrators. How many webtoons did you read before drawing the novella?
Hello? Oh, okay. Speaking for me personally, honestly, way too many.
Yeah, I read webtoons 24/7. I've read manga. I've read comics my whole life. Watched a lot of anime. Yeah, I would say it's a daily practice.
I mean, I read a few, but I think my style isn't as influenced by it. And also mine were, I wasn't a part of like the comic part. I was doing inserts, so it was a little different for me. But yeah.
Not that it matters. But yeah, I watched a lot of anime too, so thanks, Kenneth. Also, Kenneth there was the original actor planned to be for Ji-tung, so yeah. Thank you for your question.
Any other questions yet? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and ask one. So, were there stories that you wanted to include but had to eliminate when it transitioned from a film to the comic book?
So there were a few stories that we had dropped because of this transition between film to comic book. One of them being Lee Hong-chu, which is related to Ron Chu. And also a few more other inserts that we didn't get a chance to input simply because of one, time being a huge factor, as also change of plans. It's hard to coordinate a project of this size to condense it down into a comic book. So yeah, there were a few stories that we had to cut, but I think with our focus, Chinese, Japanese, and Filipino veterans, we were able to tackle a huge chunk of history and 224 pages of the book.
Okay, so another question. So, were there any interesting discoveries that you made while working on this project, or some takeaways that you have?
Okay, I would say, yeah, so like kind of tying back to the webtoon question, I know when I'm reading webtoons, I'm like, yo, this chapter could be longer. Like, I want more, like, where you're just like speeding through them. But once I actually started making, kind of like a similar, like, project, I realized like how stressful it is and like having to meet deadlines and just, overall, like, because you have to think of the scene and you have to set up the scene and then you have to just think of so many things and like draw them all. And yeah, I didn't realize how much like work it actually took, but I'm actually really grateful because I feel like I've grown as an artist and I've developed more skills that are able to like effectively help me like in the future if I want to continue to do more of these projects. So yeah, that was something I wasn't anticipating.
I mean, similar to what Brooklyn already said, I think it was a learning process of working with all of these amazing people and meeting the deadlines and like working through burnout and stuff. Because also we were all in school during that time, so balancing all of that. So that was tough, but it was a good learning experience, and I think I learned a lot from it.
I can definitely second on those. Yeah, I think for me, just like the burnout was huge working on this project. Like you start off, you're really excited. You're like, yes, I'm gonna tell an awesome story with my awesome artwork, and then like halfway through, you're like, oh my gosh, I want this to stop. But I think at the end, like we all like ended up enjoying the overall process, and like especially with the final product, like getting to see it like physically, it makes a huge difference. And then I think also like on the educational side, I learned a lot of new things about Seattle because I'm from Arkansas, so it's a very, very different place. And getting getting to like see like this new like history, or at least new to me, was very eye opening.
So I noticed that in a few of the illustrations, it looks like that you kind of blurred back from like the filming piece of it, right? And then you have the ones where you didn't have a film to kind of base it off of. So what went into the process of thinking of how to set up those ones that you didn't have like a template for to do?
Yeah, so for me, I would, since a lot of scenes that I did, I didn't have any templates. I would read the script and then like visualize it and then like kind of like map it out from there. So it would be a very messy sketch. And then it would kind of eventually like come into fruition as like a finished piece. But it definitely, I did not realize like how time consuming and like tedious it is to put everything into the like squares and then find the right squares. And yeah, so that was very like time consuming for me. But yeah.
I think on my end, there were a couple of scenes where I didn't have a template as well, but because I was part of this process a lot earlier, I had the chance to like discuss like when we were working even just like on the bare bones of the script, like what we would want like certain panels to look like, and I had the chance to like really discuss that with the team because I was there early on.
So how did you decide to edit it down though? Because I can imagine that you would have a lot of different ideas for it, and then how did you choose? Like, did you have to look at the history of it or other things like that?
You want to answer it? Yeah, go for it.
So for a lot of the scenes that were not previously filmed or not even planned out at the time, what we ended up doing was also doing some research. So similar to Collette and Cyman, we had reference photos available online through the UW resources. And one in particular I could mention, like the made-up scene with Joe, Louis, and Cindy dancing. We didn't really have anything filmed or knew what prom looked like or winter dance looked like in the 1940s. So a lot of the background images, as well as the dress, the shirts, were based off of style and pictures from the 1940s. And then also, I guess just to talk more about my role, I was like helping direct and really storyboard some of the scenes. But we broke this down into like 3 phases. Phase 1 with Heidi and Tommy first storyboarding what they thought would be like appropriate scenes for the comic book. Phase 2, Brooklyn and Caroline hop in and they help out with graphic design as well as illustrations for the inserts. Mason also joined the team, helping Caroline. So for the scenes that were not planned for, we had to do a lot of research. We had to make sure that we were being accurate, but we also didn't want anything that was I guess wrong, that took away from the story. And I think that was the biggest learning process because again, we haven't made a comic book ever before. And actually, if you look at the comic book style, it's very similar, if not identical to American-Born Chinese. So if any of y'all read that book, look at the recipe, like the equation that we followed. That was really because I thought we got repeat success. American-Born Chinese worked. Let's follow a similar equation and make something just as impactful.
Okay, I guess another question. So now that you have this comic book finished, is there anything that you would have done differently now that you have this process, you know what you did?
Yes. Go ahead.
I guess like on the artistic side, for me, I think so. Like Brooklyn mentioned, like as we went through this, like we learned like our own shortcuts, like how to like do things faster but still make it look nice, you know. And I think like if I had that knowledge like firsthand, like when I was starting this project, I think I definitely would have put that to work. Because when we first started, it was taking forever to like get through even just like one page because we're adding so much detail. But at the same time, you don't want to take away from like, I guess like all the like little things that make the character like and the scene like what it is, right? And so yeah, I think that's one of like the biggest changes I would have had for myself.
Yeah, and so for me, I would like make you can make character templates and be able to like paste them, and it's like way more efficient, and you don't spend as much time and the characters look consistent. So that's something I would do. But I mean, overall, like I feel like just with art in general, it really encapsulates who you are in that moment, and so I wouldn't really change anything, because if it's like a documentation of like me, my life, my story, like I look back on it and I think of like who I was at that moment. So
I mean, I think kind of agreeing with both of you. I definitely would take more time management that I kind of learned by the end, and use that, and not have made it so intricate for myself at the beginning. But also, yeah, because my style, I think, definitely changed progressing through the book and through the illustrations. But I do think it's kind of cool, like what Brooklyn said, it's kind of a documentation of how you grew through the process. So, yeah.
And yeah, just I also agree with the team because thankfully for me, I had other projects previously that were also pretty big, some documentaries and films that experience helped me out in this project specifically, as talked about the time management as well as the pre-production. Not everyone sees the pre-production, and let me tell you, that was hard. I'm understating that tremendously because every square, every storyboard, every frame, even for the stuff that was not planned, it would have to be in a communication with the team and telling them, oh, you need this specific block here, this block here. So for me, knowing that we have a team that is just starting to do this comic book process, I want to make sure like their time was spent wisely and that they had a great experience making this project. So I took a lot of the brunt of like the logistics, the scripting, the directing, but it was all really worth it because I think for them, this is where they really shine through as creatives. And as you can see in the book, I mean, it's just three unique different styles combined into one.
Any last questions from the audience?
How did you decide on the title?
So, in a Mellow Tone, famous song in the 1930s, 1940s, as performed by Auntie Annabel, that's kind of how we flipped it. So we took mellow and we turned it to yellow because for the story, it's a focus on Asian American veterans. So it's a yellow tone because it's following Asian American history. But it also references a song during the time period. And we can also think of it from, in the story, Collette and Cyman giving their presentation. So they're the ones who really came up with the title. But yeah, that's how we kind of pieced it together, making it true to history and also emphasizing some Asian American pride with it.
Any last questions? Okay, that will conclude our Q&A then. Can we get a round of applause for our speakers?
And so we're going to go ahead and conclude the Q&A. But before we conclude the entire event, we do have some scenes filmed from the 2019-2020 time period. So for the members in the audience who were involved with the filming process, you knew how it was. I mean, like we just show up on the spot, we get the scheduling, and we would film right then and there, sometimes for a few hours, sometimes for a long time period. And I just got to say, great job. Because the talent that we had casted for the film, I think, was perfect. And I wish, as looking back with the Q&A, like if we had more time, I wish we had time to actually film it. Because I think it would have been a great piece to have in comparison from film to the comic book, some of the similarities, and what you need to change for a comic book, what needs to be written and said. But yeah, let's go ahead and watch In a Yellow Tone, the outtakes.
Set. Action. there are a bunch of photo albums in here. Wonder if I could find a baby picture of you.
Why, you've been missing me all these years?
You wish. Hey, Cyman. Who's this young man?
Wait, who?
He's pretty cute, you know. You sure you guys are related?
Rolling. I'm rolling.
Alright. Scene 1A, take 2.
哎呀，麻煩你。哎呀，同我要個靚哥見過嚟。喂，阿 Jo 嚟幫手好唔好？哦，係我哋見下我哋晒。係，志通呢個係我仔阿 Jo， 哇皮膚好靚好白，係要 muscle 添。呢個係姨姨，係好嘢好嘢。係姨姨，真係乾炒牛啊，真係好食 ，number one 啊，好食好食。呢個係表妹啊表弟。 哎呀，唔使客氣 ，OK， 唔使客氣。呢個係 family， 你叫 Hanson 得啊。Just come up with some off the dome. ABCs. Good.
We're in a minute.
And let's cut. And reveal Johnny onto the side. And nod your head, Johnny, like it's cool. It's all right. Now offer your teacup like, hey, let's drink together now. It's cool. All right, now take a sip all together. Yep. All right, and just be happy. Be happy, like, I'm proud of you. It's okay.
Right.
Told you I could beat you. You cheated. You ran. You didn't find the goal. Jacob, you saw us. I didn't cheat. I beat Tommy fair and square.
You're awesome, Cindy. You can beat anyone at anything. You're top drawer. No one can beat you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, give it up. You always side with her.
I have to. She's my neighbor.
Well, what about me? Am I your neighbor too?
Man, just keep working on your run. I gotta go to a senior class meeting. I'll catch you guys later.
Oh my God, Jacob is always so nice. He's intelligent. He's a senior class officer, and he plays so many varsity sports.
Hey, Tommy. Oh yeah, let me introduce you to my good buddies. This is Joe Louis Wong, Felix Reyes, and Benson Yi. Fellas, this is my cousin Cindy Tan, and you already know Annie, Jacob's sister.
Hi, Joe Louis. Felix Benson? Joe Louis, that almost sounds like the boxing king. Do you box?
Louis is my mom's father's name. I just wanted to honor him. It does kind of sound like Joe Louis, but I'm not much of a boxer.
I guess not. I can go box with you sometime.
Stop teasing him, Cindy. Can you pretend to be a nice girl?
Anyways, I bet you can beat Tommy.
Hey, can you stop that?
Annie, hey. You ready to go?
No. Hey, introduce you to my friend Betty. Hi. Okay, see you guys later.
Set. Action.
Your cousin, she's pretty. Athletic, pretty athletic.
You're asking a lot of questions about her. That's not like you, Joe Louis. You're usually a shy guy.
And cut.
Hey, Joe Louis.
Hey, you're showing me. This isn't it.
No, go ahead. Hey, guys.
I'm sorry.
Wait, Joe Louis.
And cut.
Hey, Betty.
Hey. You know what was really funny?
What?
That Joe Louis spilled the milk on you.
It was kind of cute, though.
Was it?
I mean, a little bit, but I think he's gonna avoid me.
Really?
Yeah, I hope not.
Do you want him to avoid you?
Not really.
Ooh, are you Kathy laughing for Joe Louis?
Stop it! No.
and then I'm gonna go there. Then add the 1. That's 9.
What's the matter with you, Joe Louis? You've been acting like a dope all day.
Don't worry about it, man.
Hey Tommy! Are you guys going to the homecoming dance tomorrow? I really want to go, but my Lolo says I can't go unless you go.
Oh, do you want to go?
Everyone seems to be really excited. I've never been to a homecoming dance before.
I don't know. Wait, fellas. Do you guys want to go to homecoming? If I don't go, Cindy will get mad at me, and then my parents will get mad at me.
Hey Joe Louis. You can be the first on my dance card.
Hey, what about me?
You can be second. Joe Louis, why don't we go together? You can walk me to the dance. I live next to Tommy on East Gongye, so come at 7.
Oh, okay.
Wait, so you know how to dance?
Son, you need to ask the girl to dance properly.
But Mom, they don't.
Don't talk back. Go like this, and then hands out. Okay, now let's switch. Okay, hands out.
Very good.
Parkman, 1, 2, 3.
Bum 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 bum.
Eyes up. Now turn. Okay, okay. Now go ask your sister to dance properly.
Me?
Quiet. Parkman,
Huh?
1,
Oh.
2, 3.
Son, Dipper. Trust me, you'll get the ladies with that one. Just a little bit more smooth. That's how I got your mother.
Are you joining your cousin?
I don't know. I'm going to California for work. I think he's there too. But what about you? When you turn 18, are you enlisting too?
My mother's afraid. We haven't heard back from Chinatown in a while.
Joe Louis, take care of Betty for me.
What's this? Take care of Betty. Betty will take care of Betty. You just make sure you return home safely, okay?
See you around.
Tap on pen. Close up the journal. And on that, maybe just relax on the bed. Look at the ceiling. Cool. That's it.
Cut.
Okay, can we get another round of applause for this group? And also, there's a black Lexus truck outside blocking someone's car, so I don't know if that's... Okay, we got it. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to invite Tommy Tran, a member of our team, to come up and say a few words.
What's good, everybody? I'm sorry I'm late.
yeah, I just want to thank everybody for this experience, especially Han. You know, I wanted to be an actor in high school, but it didn't work out. So, yeah. So I'd like to thank Han for the opportunity to be a part of the first film. And then the second film, unfortunately, due to COVID, it didn't work out, so we had to change everything. But I got another opportunity to be an illustrator and a script writer for the book. So it was a cool opportunity, and I'd like to thank everybody, especially these wonderful ladies, Professor So, Wen, who else was here? Johnny. What's good, Johnny? I didn't see you. Yeah, so. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, just thank you everybody for coming, and I guess this is the conclusion, right? That's it. So thank you, everyone. If you have not already, go to the back, get your totes, get the comic book, get a shirt, anything else. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today.